Good morning.
How are you, Nana?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. So we're back for another episode of the Next Chapter podcast. And I want to talk a little bit about yesterday. We had an amazing taping with our dear friend Meredith, who works in the senior living space. She's like a connector for all the different people that it takes to help seniors transition to the next chapter. And as we discussed, it takes a village. And she really emphasized the importance of community. So I wanted to talk about that today. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I really love she actually closed on that note, and I thought, wow, here's another example of why you need community in life. I mean, it really relates to every aspect of our lives, whether it's when we're kids growing up, our, how we were raised, what kind of life we're trying to give our kids, and in the senior space. Because now, again, you need so much community. It takes a village, right? If we're not together, if we're not connected, we can't help each other as much, and we're very connected. We're a very connected species. We need to
Yeah.
connect, and
Yeah.
I love that she mentioned that. And it does take a village because, as we're learning more and more about the space, we're realizing there's so many different people involved, and we want to help connect people as well. Create our own little sort of circle of resources when people approach us. And we want to be able to, be the designing force of that circle, and we want to help people in their homes and, as we saw with Ian and Mimi, the downsizing and relocation. So, this is what we do. And we loved our interview with Meredith. She's going to be part of episode 2 of the Next Chapter project, which we're really excited about. And we're going to continue our docu-series on aging and embracing aging. And we want it to be uplifting as well. We want it to be inspiring and uplifting, and we want to open that conversation, right?
hmm Exactly. And it just made me think, what does community mean to me? It's just like what we were talking about a few minutes ago, our neighborhoods and how important it is to live in a neighborhood that you like and you feel comfortable in and you feel as if you are a part of a community. In Los Angeles, it's really hard. For
It's
people who
hard.
don't live in Los Angeles, they probably couldn't understand, but Los Angeles is so vast that it's really hard to feel like
Yeah.
you're part of a community in Los Angeles. So my community is not my neighborhood necessarily. It's my friends who are all over the city. They might only be 9 or 10 miles away, but it's going to take me an hour to go see them. And that's just kind of what you have to do here. So it's even more important that you make a community for yourself, um, in Los Angeles or anywhere. And I
Yeah.
don't really have any family who lives here either. So my community is the community that I've created with my friends. You being
Right.
one of
I
them?
think, yeah, I mean, LA is really interesting because both you and I have lived in different cities across the US. I've spent a lot of time on the East Coast because I went to college in Boston and then I lived in New York. I started in design in New York. And I'm from here. I grew up here, so I'm used to that. I'm used to sort of the driving, not as much, but I didn't grow up driving as much, but I do quite a bit of driving now, and I know, and my circle is also spread out, and it's tough. And I think here it just takes more effort. You can make the life that you want here in LA. It just takes a little bit more effort, and it's a different way. But that said, there's a lot of pluses and wonderful things about being here because we also have a little bit more peace and quiet and privacy and, space. So
Mhm.
because, you and I lived in New York and that is, less of a possibility for a lot of people. So, it was easier for me to have a community in New York. It happened very organically. It happened very quickly because people were so much closer together. And life was different, right, Laura? Like it was so much easier to make friends and be out all the time and have time for people and give that time when you're not a family. Now that you
Mhm.
have, a significant other, a partner, and a child or multiple children, it gets that much harder to give time to others and to form that community. So it's really, it's still something that should be a priority, I think, for us and for others, just to continue to establish and make what's the word I'm looking for, to kind of establish relationships and nurture them, to get
Mm,
to make time for other people. It's really important to make time for other people, because if you don't, those relationships won't foster. And I want a community today and in the future when I one day
mm.
age. And you had mentioned something about a community you wanted to start, actually, right?
Oh,
Like where,
right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, let's talk about that, because that could be the
Mhm.
future of aging in
Yeah.
place and community one day, having these
Yeah.
sort of, communities that form around the states
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Yeah,
around the
no,
world.
I mean, for seniors, it's even more important to have a community because they can't get out as much
Right.
we can. So their community has to be,
Very
around,
close because of
all the
mobility
time.
issues.
Right,
Right.
exactly. So my thought was, and it's not an original thought by any means, but I would love to create just sort of a community of people my age when I'm a senior, of my friends, whether they're married or whether they're single. I mean, all of their children are going to be away and gone. And wouldn't it be wonderful to just be able to live on a little compound with all of your older friends or
Mhm.
even make new friends? But with the new strides that are being made today in architecture and design, which is our field, obviously, um, that can be made so much easier because there's tiny homes that you can buy now and literally like plunk them down in a backyard. That's what I'm doing right now in my own home. I'm gonna level the backyard and build two ADUs, and maybe my sisters who live on the East Coast will come and retire in one of them. Who knows? I would love that.
Right, because at that point, isn't it just more about your activities and your experience on a daily basis and that connection with others? I mean, you don't really need that much space, right? And space requires maintenance, it requires cleaning. Stuff can
Mm,
how much stuff do you need at that point? I feel
mm,
like, downsizing just makes so much sense for
right.
seniors. It
Mhm.
doesn't make sense for you to live in large homes with too much maintenance. And
Mhm.
so to me, it's just a natural progression of getting older where you kind of change, and that next chapter isn't necessarily about size and holding on and hoarding these pieces. And of course we all, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my furniture
Mhm.
collection, but I'm sure at some point it's just not even going to matter anymore, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. It's not what's most important. And now
Right.
it's not what's most important, but
Mhm.
then more so than ever.
Mhm.
Because maybe also you want to be able to get out and travel more, and maybe, and you can. I mean, who's to say that we, like, the more we take care of ourselves, the more we can do in that chapter as well, right? Like, I don't
Mhm.
want I hope that I don't have those mobility problems where then I can't move around or do anything. Like, I still want to be able to travel and experience, not just the people around me in my city, but around the world. And that's really
Mhm.
important to me, because that's how I find inspiration. And I think that inspiration is something really important too, because community inspires you, people inspire you. And when I travel, as much as I love the landscape and the architecture and everything, it's also the people. Seeing the people inspires me, and meeting new people inspires me. So it's interesting what will happen as we get older and how people choose to live their lives.
Mm. Well, being adaptable to change is really important, which is something we learned when we talked to our clients, Mimi and Ian, and their adaptability to change. And it's hard to adapt when you're older, but I think it's really important if you can. And you and I were becoming kind of experts in this whole downsizing, relocation sort of space. Because, I mean, first of all, we both lived in New York. We know how it is to live in a smaller space. We know how to make things comfortable without having, like,
Mhm.
tons and tons of extra space around.
Yeah, you
But
don't
that
need it.
being said, if somebody wants to stay in their home and not relocate and they do live in a larger home, we can help accommodate for that too. Every person is different and everybody has different needs. So,
Exactly. Every case is different, and that said, we know that the sort of desire and the what works best for most people, or what their true heart desire is to stay in their homes, right? That's where your
Yeah.
memories are. Those are your core memories. That's where you're most comfortable. So I think that most people, unless they really need to make that decision, which in me and Mimi and Ian's case was that Ian has dementia. It's just not safe for him to be in a large home. I mean, he can walk out and walk into his neighborhood and be gone, you know? And
Mhm.
so, the Village Sherman Oaks really keeps him safe and close. And if he does wander off, it's okay. It's not a big
Mm.
deal. Someone will find him.
Yes, he's
So
safe. Wherever he
he's
is, he's safe.
safe wherever he is. It's a place where he can do that if it happens.
Mhm.
But that said, if it works out, I think most people prefer, that's the preference, to stay in their
Yeah.
homes. And Meredith touched on that yesterday, is that she
Yes.
feels that that is sort of the first want, or
Mhm. Mhm.
and so again, we can do what we can. And if there's lots of stairs, maybe it's not possible and whatnot, but there's still workarounds with all of that. And we can make it so that, it works out.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I just love talking about community because it's so important. And I wanted to touch on last week's episode, where we talked about Keanu Reeves getting married. We just thought that was such a wonderful thing, and
Well,
it was
yeah, we were
fake
just trying to pull
news.
some quick celeb
It was
news,
fake
It was
news.
fake news. Yeah. So wanted to
So
mention, sorry
beware of
guys,
fake
it was
news.
fake news.
Yeah.
We don't want to be a
Sorry,
spreader of that.
Keanu. Sorry, Alexandria.
Yeah, I guess tricky
Yes,
now in today's day and age of what you can
yes.
find
You
online, and,
don't believe everything you
don't believe
hear,
everything. Yeah.
read, folks.
So,
Anyway,
all right. We'll see you next week.
yes, have a good week.
Okay. You too.
Bye.
Bye.